What's up, everybody? Good morning, and welcome back to another edition of the show. It is episode 397. We're all the way in November 16th, 2023, and I'm excited about today's show. A couple of strong guests. Let's introduce them, bring them on to the show. Head coach at the University of Pennsylvania, Reina, and the head coach of the PRTC, Brandon Slay. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Good, Mark. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just kind of saying to you off camera, Brandon, like it's this, we're getting into the Olympics season, right? Olympic trials, processes, qualifiers are coming up. We're getting into the start of the college wrestling season. So for a wrestling fan, it's like the best time of year. We got a freestyle event this weekend. We got a folk style event this weekend that's pertinent to both you guys. I want to start, Roger, with you, though, as we're talking about the college season. And can you just college wrestling's changed, right? And in a lot of ways, but I guess I'm thinking about the way coaches and athletes approach it. You're seeing a lot of the better wrestlers now coming to the nationals with 16, 17 matches, 22, 23 matches, 25, 28 almost seems like high. Whereas in the past, it was like 30, 40, wrestle all you can. Can you talk about how college wrestling has maybe changed? I want to say maybe even just the last 5 years of the approach athletes and coaches are taking to the season, how much they're wrestling. Not that they're being selective. Maybe they're being selective. They're just being aware about when they're wrestling and how often.
Yeah. It's a really good question, Mark, and I agree 100%. It's changed quite a bit, and I think that I was talking with some other college coaches at Fargo this summer, and we just all can come to the conclusion that these guys that are coming into college have a lot more matches under their belt, than they did 10, 15 years ago, whatever you want to compare it to, and so they just got a lot more mileage, right? And I think that's one of the factors that goes into it. I think certainly is as we think about our training, it's a lot different again than it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. I think there's a lot more sparring, a lot more play wrestling, not as much live wrestling, in our practices. And I think it comes back to the, two things with that. One is the number of matches and kind of the wear and tear guys have, through rigorous, middle school, high school careers, coming into college. And then also just learning, even better ways, to learn the sport and to learn the in-between positions, which I think sparring really helps so much with. So yeah, a lot of change how we approach training, a lot of change in terms of number of matches.
Yeah. And Brandon, I guess similar question on the freestyle side. It's 23 years since you were competing or thereabout. How have things changed? Now you're in a coaching capacity, so you're in the thick of it every day. How have things changed for the way guys are training, I guess, and competing on the senior level?
I think there's a lot of things that are the same. I mean, you're teaching double legs and single legs and high crotches and defense and all that stuff. But I feel like now there's this extra element of work you have to do on the edge, just because of the edge of the mat rule. I mean, there's X amount of drills we'll do where you get in on a high single leg, right? And you keep your hips low and you push a guy out of bounds. Well, clearly, like Coach Reina, him and his staff would never do that drill in folk style practice, right? So there's specific things we need to do in freestyle to make sure guys are prepared, and then clearly just the parterre element. Use the reference me 23 years ago. 23 years ago, you could only do one gut wrench, and you had to go get another form of a point before you could do another gut wrench. You could only do one leg lace, right? Or you had to do a gut wrench or tilt them and hold them for a 5 count before you could do another leg lace. So, nowadays you can take a guy down, get a trapped arm gut, tech him. Nowadays you can take a guy down, transition into a leg lace, right, and tech him, which, you weren't seeing that 23 years ago. There weren't as many tech falls as you see now because, I think parterre is so much a bigger part of freestyle wrestling.
That's good. And I'm going to go back to you, Roger. I'm kind of bouncing back between college and senior. Another change we've seen on the college level is the 3-point takedown. You're in the thick of it with college. You've surely seen a little bit of that so far this year. I'm just curious your thoughts on the 3-point takedown and how you think it impacts college wrestling, if at all.
Yeah, well, I definitely think it does impact. I think the race to get to that 8-point differential in the major, it's a little faster race to get there now. And so and just different situations, and we're still learning, best decisions from the corner, just having one tournament, the journeyman under our belt. But are you taken down, with a 2-point lead or not? Is that how valuable is that escape, right? And just all different kinds of scoring scenarios, that I think are different. But as Brandon said, there's a lot that's the same. Like we're still, training, double legs, single legs, high crotches, front headlocks, and ways to score high percentage, manner. So I think a lot's the same. But I think the biggest thing that I saw this past weekend was the capacity to get to a major decision, and on the flip side, the capacity for guys to get back into a match quickly, being down 6-7 points. It's a faster way to get back into the match without having to score back points. So pretty exciting actually to start with.
And Will knew the 3-point takedown was coming, and was it something, the tactics such as a 2-point lead, am I taken down, or am I going up, or different scenarios that could play out? Are these things that you and some of the coaches maybe discussed or hypothesized about before the season, or is it more like we just got to let these matches happen and play out, and then we're going to see the effects of the 3-point takedown?
Yeah, I think it's, to be honest with you, it's a little bit of both. We're trying to forecast different situations and be prepared for them. Yet at the same time, we got to see it a little bit in live action, to understand the impact. Our athletes, I think, the same way too. They've got to experience it. And I think that's what we're in process of doing. It's different for the fans. I caught myself yelling 2 from the corner when it was supposed to be 3, right? I caught an official, putting up 2 instead of 3. I think it's brand new and everybody's still getting used to it. But but we did some projections. But I think, honest enough to say, hey, we're not yet able to forecast all of the different scenarios yet.
I caught myself. I was at home watching a duel, and somebody got a takedown at college the last second, and then there wasn't even nobody around. I jumped up and I yelled 2, and then I was like, "That's actually this is gonna be tricky." Like rewiring the brain. And I know you coached Brandon, right, in college, and I'm curious, like, when did you notice there was something about him that was different or special, or where you thought this guy's he's got something, or there's a potential to do something special? And how do you see that in an individual?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question, and I've shared this story a number of times, but I was actually out at a tournament, looking at some different potential recruits, and off to the side on this one table was an 8th grader, this blonde kid from Texas, and the fur was flying, and tables were getting knocked over, and there was all kinds of action on the mat, and it just kind of caught my eye. I'm like, who's this kid from Texas, right? And so I started tracking Brandon, very early, and he had a lot of success in Greco and in the Olympic styles, and saw him go through the the cadets and the juniors and whatnot. But honestly, there was kind of this like cat-like ability to land on his feet, or to plane out of throws, or just this kind of kinesthetic awareness, body awareness that had him keep landing on his feet, or in really good position. I was like, wow, this guy looks different to me.
Brandon, what do your earlier memories of Coach Reina? I don't know about 8th grade, but whenever he starts recruiting you, or you get to know him, and I'm sure there was plenty of coaches knocking on your door and recruiting you, but what about him and the picture, the program of UPenn stood out to you amongst all the other ones?
Well, clear I didn't talk to Coach Reina at that tournament he was speaking of, because if I remember right, that was in Billings, Montana, which Coach's mom is from Montana, so he was up visiting family, and we drove from Amarillo, Texas, to Billings, Montana, with a bunch of wrestlers from Texas, and so I remember that specific tournament, and back then it was called the AAU Grand Nationals, and if we were going to drive that far, our coach was like, "You're wrestling freestyle, Greco, and Sambo." And of course, we didn't even train Sambo, but you'd put a gi on and go out there, right? Just try to throw some kid or double leg some kid to score points. But, that was the tournament I think he was referencing. And I think connection to Coach Reina, which was really special, is not everybody who recruited me actually took the time to come to Amarillo, Texas, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. I mean, they would recruit you, they would call you back then, but for him to fly from Philadelphia to Amarillo and come see the environment that I grew up in, that was always really special to me. And then I think for me as well is that period of time when Penn was recruiting me, they hadn't had an All-American, which I think it was about 33 years, Mark. And so some people are like, well, why the heck would you even look at a school like that that hadn't had an All-American in 33 years? But to me, there was something fascinating about that and Coach Reina did, I think, a great job of recruiting me as a senior in high school, saying like, man, you're from West Texas, you're from a trailblazing area. I think you have a pioneering spirit. We need somebody to come in here with that type of spirit and want to be the first All-American, in 33 years. And I think that was appealing to me because no disrespect to any other program, but if I'd have gone to Lehigh or Penn State, school like that, then if I would become an All-American, they would just tap me on the back and like, hey, you did your job, good job. You're amongst hundreds, right? But Penn, it wasn't the case, and so that was appealing to me of wanting to be a first in a long time. But at that, in addition to having the opportunity to go to an Ivy League school, which I was the first person from my family on either side to graduate from college. So like aiming big, that was appealing to me. And then I wanted to major in business. And so getting accepted to the Wharton School of Business was really appealing to me. And then I think also what was really appealing to me is on my recruiting trip, Coach Reina was wise. And on my recruiting trip, we drove out to Foxcatcher. And, one of my heroes was Dave Schultz. I watched him win the gold medal on TV in 1984 in Los Angeles. And so I walk into Foxcatcher, and there's Dave, one of the very first people I meet. As Dave Schultz walks up, shakes my hand, and said, hey, I really hope you consider coming to Penn. I look forward to training with you. So, having the opportunity to go to Philly, again, be a trailblazer, Ivy League degree, Wharton School of Business, and get a chance to train with one of the best wrestlers of all time. I think all that together, Mark, was just it was just really clear that Penn was the best place for me.
I mean, having Dave Schultz in your back pocket, I don't know whether it was in cahoots, but having him, give that pitch or, even just being right there had to be awesome.
Yeah, Dave, just an incredible guy. Anybody that crossed paths with him had the pleasure of getting to know him and meet him. He was obviously an incredible wrestler and masterful technician, but also just a wonderful human being. And he took interest in our program, and he was helpful. A number of the Foxcatcher guys, came on at various times as assistant coaches as well. So Danny Shade wrestled at Oklahoma, and Brian Dolph was a longtime assistant coach. Actually, obviously Brandon and he met in the Olympic trials, right? In the finals of the Olympic trials. And Trevor Lewis, who still works at the university here, the 11-time, U.S. Open All-American, just, a high number of guys that were training at a very high level. And we happened to be, in the neighborhood, where Foxcatcher was. So, but yeah, obviously Dave, super special guy.
Yeah. We'll talk a little more senior freestyle. And I know I think Brandon, you took a couple guys over to Kazakhstan. McKenna and Burroughs, Jordan down at 74, almost making scratch. But, whether or not this was anything that you guys ever discussed in the wrestling fandom and the media and, people who just like to talk and hypothesize, it was like, should Jordan consider going up to 86, right? And I'm just curious if that was ever, though, that discussion even ever got broached, or if it was like not even anything that needed to be discussed because he's 74 and that's that.
No, we discussed it. I would say we didn't discuss it for more than, I would say less than an hour total.
Okay.
Maybe, maybe it was shorter than that. But I think it's wise to throw everything on the table and analyze it. And so you discuss it from the aspect of, clearly Jordan bumped up and he wrestled Zahid, who was just third in the world at 92 kilos, right? And beat him. He wrestled David Taylor, David Taylor, an Olympic champion, multiple-time world champion at 86 kilo. And if I remember right, he lost 4-4, if I remember right.
Yeah, that's right.
So has Jordan proven that he can wrestle with bigger guys, that are world champs, Olympic champs, world medalists? The answer is yes. I mean, he can wrestle those guys. But I think what we landed on is that the goal isn't just to make the Olympic team. The goal is to be an Olympic champion. He's been Olympic champion before. 2016, clearly the Rio didn't go as well as he wanted it to. He wants 2021 making the team didn't go as well as he wanted to. And thank God he's still healthy enough and still has the ability to wrestle at this level as a 35-year-old that he wants to go back and make the team at Paris and win another Olympic gold medal. So the goal isn't just to make the Olympic team. The goal is to be Olympic champion. And where we landed on that the best opportunity for him to be Olympic champion, all things considered, was at 74. And yeah, he was gonna have to bring his weight down from 79 kilo. But everybody knows Jordan. He didn't carry a lot of fat. It's not like he was some ginormous 79 kilo guy. He just needed to get back, disciplined to get his weight down to 74, and he's done that. So, looking at him, he's a 74 kilo guy. And when there's 10 weight classes and there's an opportunity to go 79, right? He chose to do that and won 2 world titles at 79 kilo, but now the 79 kilo is not an option. So you either have to choose 74 or 86, and we decided to choose 74.
Was going to Kazakhstan at 74, was that decision as much about making weight and seeing how you feel as it was about getting the matches in?
I think it was a combination of both, and you and I, we've talked before, the silver lining of not making the world team this last summer at Final X was that Jordan could start the process of getting his weight down sooner. If he makes the world team and goes to wrestles in Serbia and wins another world title, he probably wouldn't have started focused on getting his weight down until probably, I would say, the middle of October. And that would have been too late to make 74 kilos for Kazakhstan or clearly the Pan Am Games. But the fact that, he didn't make it, the silver lining was he started earlier, he started being disciplined and getting his weight down, and then he had plenty of time. He had plenty of time to get his weight down to be able to go wrestle in November in Kazakhstan. And so, yes, part of it was to get the weight down, but another part of it was to get matches. I mean, as we know, whether you're 25 or 35, sometime during the year, you need to compete. Because as a coach athlete, it's the best time to get feedback is when you watch somebody compete. I mean, they can compete in the wrestling room. You can wrestle matches on Friday, and Jordan and Mark Hall can wrestle, and I can give feedback that there's something different about flying to Kazakhstan, making weight, right, and wrestling against a bunch of guys from Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan. There's something different about it. So, the other part of it was to be able to get matches in and to continue to get better at wrestling.
And how was that tournament? Like, I know Jordan won, Joey won, he beat Yanni. That's really big for him. But not just the tournament, the experience, because I think we talked about this time last year, and I remember some story about I don't think you hitchhiked a ride, but I think you found a ride to the airport 6 hours away. You drove through the middle of the night. They stopped you in their little town. You thought you were going to miss your flight. Any international, I don't know about shenanigans, but, anything stick out from this trip, maybe aside from just the wrestling?
Well, thankfully, because we went last year, we were able to build some good friendships and relationships and have some experience of what we were dealing with. And the people were just phenomenal to us, just very serving, very hospitable to us. And anytime we needed a ride, needed to go to the grocery store, anywhere we needed to go, they were just very hospitable. It's a great situation in Taraz, Kazakhstan. They have a nice little Olympic training center there where it's similar to the Olympic Training Center. You have a nice room. You stay really close to the wrestling room, really close to the cafeteria where you eat. So that was all nice. But because we went last year, I knew this year that when we got this ride back to the airport, I made it extremely clear that I don't want to stop at anybody's house on the way, right, and have some big, meal of horse meat, and camel milk on the way home. So, I made it really clear this year that we wanted to go directly to the airport.
Glad to hear that.
But, great tournament. I think back to your question is that Joey, I think, had 23 guys from Kazakhstan in his weight class. So it's kind of like, when you wrestle in Urigan and you have 25 guys from Russia in your weight class,
Yeah.
which typically what happens. Joey's weight class, he had 33 guys, him and Yanni. They had 23 guys from Kazakhstan. And then again, you think just like regionally, Kyrgyzstan, China brought a team, Uzbekistan brought a team, and then clearly a lot of guys from Kazakhstan.
Yeah.
Great tournament.
The performances. What were your takeaways with Joey and Jordan? Obviously, what they did well, or maybe small holes that you saw, where things you're like, oh, that's good to see this, so we can work on X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, I think Jordan, I was actually really impressed with his energy level and his movement and his ability to wrestle throughout full matches and score a bunch of points. You think, well, you get down to scratch weight for the first time. How's he going to feel? Is he going to kind of hold back a little bit? Is he going to win some close matches? And I would say, no, he opened it up. He scored lots of points. He got a lot of turns. His parterre, I thought we'd opened up in his parterre, which looked great. So I was really pleased with him. And then I think he also just showed, he showed poise, especially in the finals, because, that guy he wrestled, that guy's beat a lot of tough guys, and he got taken down and turned right off the bat. He's down 4-0, right? Then he comes back in Texans. So, he didn't get rattled. I mean, he was a pro in the finals, and he handles himself really well. And then I think Joey got second this tournament last year. He lost the Mongolian in the finals. We were hoping the Mongolian, Tomira Achir, would be coming back, but he wasn't. And then, for Joey to be able to get a big win over Yanni, and then clearly to win a gold medal in the tournament after getting second last year, I think that was great progress for Joey. And for Joey, if you study his wrestling, he typically gets a medal in every tournament he wrestles in. And clearly he wants to get a gold more often. So for him to bring home the gold this year was exciting.
Yeah. Is there any part of Jordan, like I believe, and I most people probably assume this is it, right? 2024, it's probably going to be the end of the line, win, lose, or draw for Jordan Burroughs. Is there any part that's like, feels like that senior in college who's, is not going on to the senior level, who's taking it in, enjoying the experiences, and really like just trying to live it all?
Yeah, I would say as a coach, just personally for me, I haven't closed the door on his opportunity to continue to wrestle after Paris, just because I watch him wrestle every day, and I don't think one more year things are going to change that much, because he does such a fantastic job being disciplined with his diet, stretching, taking care of himself. Like he's again, disciplines is I think his number one gift, and he's taking care of his body, and thankfully there hasn't been, God forbid, any major like shoulder surgeries, knee surgeries, things like that are holding him back. And I would just say that I haven't closed the door totally on that. But just like any of my guys, my other 5 guys, the 6 total guys I coach at the PRTC, you have 10 units of energy that you can use to focus on big things. And what I don't want to do is use 1 or 2 units of energy thinking about 2025, 2026, right? LA, because we have the Bill Farrell this weekend, Senior Nationals in December, to qualify for the Olympic trials, ranking series tournament in January, potentially Yassar Dagu in early March, and then clearly the Olympic trials in April. So we need to use all 10 units of energy to focus on that.
All right. Coming up, I think it's this weekend, right? It's the PRTC's Keystone Classic. Roger, explain to me, you have the PRTC sponsoring the college tournament and the benefits and why that's a good thing.
Yeah, so last year was the first year the PRTC played as host to the Keystone Classic. This is the 27th year we're running the Keystone Classic, and we thought a couple things about it. We thought it would be, great for the community, to have more access and know what the PRTC is all about. One of our core values for Penn Wrestling is community matters, and the PRTC serves. Not only the senior level guys, Jordan and Joey and the other 4 guys, but the college guys as well, both Penn and Drexel's program, as well as the high school athletes that qualify for RTC participation within a 250-mile radius. One of the things we're super excited about is that, we've got our first guy who started in the high school program from Downingtown West. His name is Doug Zaff, and then he came to the University of Pennsylvania and participated, continued to compete with the PRTC and the Olympic styles through college, and then won a U23 national title this past June, and just competed at the U23 Worlds, placing 5th and helping the team USA's performance there. So super cool to see someone come up, through every step, every developmental age group, with the PRTC. So with the tournament, being hosted by the PRTC, I think more people, fans, that come and watch and support, our team and all the other teams can better understand, that the PRTC is really out there serving others at all age groups, both locally and around the world. So we're really excited about that. It provides an opportunity to showcase. Last year, he had a clinic that Jordan put on, and you couldn't fit another kid in the room, right? It was just awesome. Anybody that had a ticket to the PRTC Keystone Classic could come and participate in that clinic, and that one image was just like, look at the impact here on the local community, and it was fantastic. And we're going to do something a little bit different this year, but we're going to do an autograph session with the PRTC senior athletes. Jordan will be there, and all the others, and so again, access to the senior level guys, and hopefully inspire kids, from the surrounding region to think about what they could do, committing to the sport, and that includes the Beat the Streets kids, here in Philadelphia and the surrounding 250-mile radius, everyone that's involved. So I think it's just a great brand building, community building, awareness for the PRTC.
Yeah, I think what you guys are doing with the PRTC is phenomenal. I didn't even put that together. Zap's like the first guy to come through at each level, so that's exciting. Another question, Roger, is with the Keystone Class, you guys have some a few weights where you're kind of deep, right? And maybe there's not a clear cut starter, or at least maybe you have in your head, maybe you don't. Will this tournament potentially serve as a measuring stick, right? We know wrestle-offs may or may not count or determine who your starter is. Are you going to use any data from the Keystone Classic to potentially outfit your lineup?
Yeah, you're spot on both of those counts, Mark. We do use this tournament as an evaluation for team selection, and we do have spots that are up for grabs, with our team. And I give a big shout out and a salute to the guys that graduated this past year from Penn, Doug Zaff included, Carmen Ferrante and Ben Golden and Anthony Artolona. They were in our very first recruiting class when I came back and took the program over. And back to the pioneering spirit that Brandon talked about, we needed another round of pioneers, and those guys came in and really elevated the program, back up into the top 20 and breaking into the top 15 in the NCAA, and our sights are even higher. So we've got now some openings, with a large number of guys that graduated this past year. We actually had 10 seniors graduate this past year. So it created openings for leadership. We've got 3 new captains. So Lucas Ravano, who's dropping down from 165 to 157. We've got Nick Contreras, who's just been looking awesome. He was 3rd at the U23 Nationals back in the spring, and a junior, just doing a terrific job. And we've got returning All-American CJ Composto at 141. So those are our tri-captains. But we like to use the Keystone to evaluate for team selection. And the journeyman this past weekend. So we do wrestle-offs, and we hold them in the palestra as well. But when we get outside competition into the mix, we've got common opponents that we can, assess how guys are doing against common opponents. Those are all really important factors too. So we'll continue that process, through our hosting of Iowa. We'll need to pick, obviously, our 10 starters when we host Iowa December 1st in the palestra, and we're super excited to have the Hawkeyes here. And then we'll send a bunch of guys to the Patriot Open down at George Mason in December, and then the Midlands. And then by that point, we expect, the lineup should be pretty clear.
You graduated 10 guys last year. That I feel like that's more than your typical senior class. So that's hats off to you guys, keeping 10 guys in a program and graduating. Amazing. And then, man, when you start going through the season, Iowa and the Patriot Open, then like Midlands, I'm like, wow, we just started, and feels like Midlands is going to be tomorrow, and that means that second semester goes like that. So wrestling season just started, but gosh, it almost feels like we're getting to the end. But Brandon, back to freestyle. It's, you got the Bill Farrell coming up this weekend. You got senior nationals. It's an Olympic year, and I know I asked the question about Jordan and maybe his last year, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But the similar question to the Olympic year: is there something, and maybe as a competitor and now as a coach, is there just a little extra feel to it, or a little extra vibe in the air or the room when you know what's on the line, and you got 10 weights coming down to 6, and the U.S. Open's now in December instead of April, and you got trials in the spring. Is there just a little different vibe to an Olympic year?
I think there is. I think there's an elevated sense of urgency and excitement, and I think how you manage that mentally is really important, because if you manage the sense of urgency and excitement by adding a bunch of extra pressure on yourself, it could be problematic. But if you manage that sense of urgency and the extra excitement with increased love for the sport, right, an opportunity to continue to go out there and do what you love to do, and I think just a stronger desire to do everything right? Just meaning, just like, are you taking care of your body? Are you stretching? Or how do you feel in your body? Are you recovering appropriately? When you go into bed, just all those things. Like, as far as your strength program, are you clicking on all cylinders? Are you doing your foot speed drills, with your foot speed coach? Just all these different things. Like, technically, coming back from Kazakhstan, what were the areas we did well? Let's make sure that we embrace those. We continue to get better at mastering those. What are the areas that you need to work on? So I think it kind of starts just kind of narrowing your gaze and your focus on what needs to get taken care of. Now, you're always that way. You should be that way if you want to be a world champion the years before. But I think the Olympic year makes you even more focused on the task at hand.
Sure. And the last thing, and it's a question for both of you, and I don't care who answers first, but we started this debate talking about Roger, how we've changed, and we train differently, and there's more sparring and less live, and the kids are better, and as we all go through life, and in this case you guys coaching, we're getting better and learning, which means there's things we did before that aren't as good, and like, I'm wondering about the mistakes you've made as coaches, right? And looking back, like, what are some of the bigger mistakes you've made, and maybe how you've learned from them over the years, whether it's training or recruiting or peaking or, how you handle kids' personal lives. It can be anything, but like, thinking back over the course of your career, what are like, I mishandled this situation, or I just didn't do things right. The earlier in your career, probably the more mistakes you're going to make. But can you think of like, some of the bigger mistakes, or a big mistake that you learned from in your career as a coach? And either of you wants to go first, that's fine by me.
Yeah.
Coach, go ahead.
I've got one, Brandon. So, and I'll just, we actually had an alumni, kind of state of the program Zoom last night, and I got asked this question, so I'm kind of teed up, Mark. What did we learn from last year? And I think that, it's kind of relearning for me how every team is different. Every year is different, and you might have the majority of the starters back. You might have returning captains, you may not. But no matter what, when some people leave an organization and new people come in, it's a different team automatically. Even if, the coaching staff, one person changes, it's a different coaching staff. And so, I'll just share that, 2 years ago, as we kind of came out of COVID and really broke into the national rankings, our team had very specific outcome-oriented goals. And we knew where we wanted to place, we wanted to win the Keystone. We wanted to place, in the top 2 at the Midlands. We had very specific goals, and we knew how to get there. And even down to here's the bonus point targets that we need to hit, to win these tournaments or to place where we want to at these tournaments, including the Easterns, including the NCAAs. And they had very specific outcome-oriented goals. And we went through that year, this is 2 years ago now, we checked off, along the way, every one of those goals. And confidence just continued to grow. And it was really inspiring to the team. We had them listed in a locker room, posted in a locker room, and we were checking them off as we went. And guys were just feeling great. So we took a very similar approach last year, and we had 10 returning NCAA qualifiers, right? So naturally we thought, hey, we want to up the game here, and we want to go even higher and bigger, and we started again with that same kind of like logic of if we want to finish here in these various tournaments, here's what we're going to need to accomplish: number of place winners, number of bonus points, etc. But it didn't really work for last year's team. That same formula for 2 years ago didn't apply well to last year's team, and we were still performing at a pretty high level. We got 8 of our 10 guys to the NCAA tournament. We had dual meet wins over nationally ranked teams, and holding in the rankings, but it wasn't an inspiring performance. We put more pressure on that team last year, and so learning from that, we came into this year, with the leadership and with our staff saying, we're gonna go back to process, and what's the process of how we want to train? What's the process of how we want to act as a team? What's our culture look like? And when we're competing, what's that look like? And let's focus on that process. Let's not focus on the results so much. So I'll share that as a mistake and hopefully a learning that applies well to this team. So far, the vibe of our team has just been outstanding this year.
Yeah, it's a great example. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Brandon, you got anything? Are you flawless?
Yeah, that was really good. I think in short, I would just say that I knew this already as a wrestler and as a coach, but I would say I've failed in not making it as important in the last couple of years. Is when I say mental health, what I mean is that I think my guys, they all know how to wrestle. Like they know how to shoot single legs and double legs, and they know how to turn guys. It's not them becoming an Olympic champion. I don't believe it's really some new technique I'm going to show them. I don't think that's the difference. I think for these guys at this level, they've had so much experiences on the world stage. I think the main difference is where their mind is, how they're managing expectations, the self-talk that they have, what they're visualizing, off the mat, how they communicate with each other as a team and as a culture. I would say that to me, I've realized I knew it's important, but it's more important than I thought it was. And, looking back on the last couple of years, I think I've done some of that, but as a coach, I need to do an even better job of making sure that the mental health, the confident mind that these guys have, it needs to be encouraged and managed and fostered even more so.
Man, I think you hit the nail on the head, Brandon. I think between the ears is, like you said, we all know singles and doubles and everything else, but yeah, you really well put.
I'll give an example. It's he shares this example, so it's not, I'm not sharing something he hasn't shared, but I've been with Jordan in the tunnel, about to walk out and wrestle the Iranian for the world title, and he's looked at me and said, "Hey, I'm scared. I'm nervous right now." And of course, you're about to go out and wrestle the Iranian for the world title, and Jordan Burroughs, who has clearly lots of success in the past, is telling you that's what he's feeling. That just goes to show, if he's feeling that, everybody feels that. Lots of wrestlers feel that. So how are you going to manage that appropriately? And I think the key to that is just to make sure, I've been sharing this with my guys, is that, look, when you have those feelings, that's natural. That's the way our body was created. When you're about to go out there on the mat, it's time to fight, right? There's fight or flight. And we know that we're not going to run away. We're not going to run back to the hotel, right? So we're going to fight. So that just means your body is basically telling you, hey, I'm getting ready to fight. And it's okay. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have those butterflies. It's okay that you feel like this. There's anxiousness, this nervousness. That's basically saying, hey, your body is, by design, is getting ready to fight. And so embracing that, saying this is a great thing. This is a good thing. I'm glad I feel this way. Because if I didn't feel this way, that would be a whole nother problem. And I think embracing that and then just reminding guys that they've been there and done that. You've been here before. You've managed this successfully, and you're going to do it again. And again, that's mental. That does not have anything to do with how fast your 40 time is, how much you bench press, right? It has nothing to do with that. How many pull-ups you can do without stopping, that's all in your head.
Brandon, I haven't wrestled in I don't know how long, but you like just got me back in that like feeling of I'm getting ready to go from that story you shared, because that's from 5th grade through high school and college. It's like it's the same, and to Jordan Burroughs at the highest level. It's cool to hear that, you know, from a guy like you about a guy like him, and hopefully anybody listening to this is like, okay, it's not so weird that I feel this way. Fight or flight, like your body's telling you it's time to fight. This is how it feels. So thanks for sharing that. That was great.
Yeah, no problem. I remember being in Midlands one time. This is I don't get a chance to do many things with Coach Reina. So on this topic, just one thing is that I remember I said the same thing to him one time in Midlands. I think I was a sophomore maybe. And it was one of the bigger tournaments I'd ever wrestled in. And if I remember right, that particular bracket I was in, it had 8 NCAA champions in it. So it was a pretty tough bracket. And when I was about to go out on the mat, and I remember telling him like, "Hey, wow, man, like I'm really nervous right now." And I said, I've got those butterflies in my stomach, and I'll never forget is they end up saying, "Hey, it's okay to have butterflies. You just got to make sure they're flying in formation." That's what he told me. Which I'll never forget that, which it's like, it's okay to feel that way. It's okay to have butterflies. You just got to make sure that this energy, right, this feeling you have, you got to make sure that you're managing it successfully and it's not going all over the place, right? Because that's when it's a problem. I think that's when wrestlers fail, when the butterflies are not flying in formation.
And that goes back to what you said with Jordan, just how to and the mental health part that you said, just getting all this in the right place at the right time and all moves forward together. So it's been a good time talking with you guys. And you know, we got Bill Farrell this weekend, PRTC's Keystone Classic this weekend. You got Wrestling Iowa here coming soon, U.S. Senior Nationals. The wrestling season is upon us, and it's super exciting. It's an Olympic year, so even more to it, guys. I want to thank you so much for coming on, and wish you guys the best of luck in your college and senior level seasons, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, have a great day. And that's going to do it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks to Coach Reina and Coach Slay. And hope you guys enjoy the wrestling season. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.